Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hello everyone, it's John. Welcome back to the series on the 1979 Midnight Blue 300 SD. Today is going to be suspension and brakes day. I want to replace the upper control arms, and I want to go around the car and replace all of the original calipers that are on the car with brand new calipers. I've also got some rotors for the rear of the car. The front rotors have already been replaced. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, if we walk over here to the parts table, here we have all the original ATE. These are the original calipers that Mercedes used when the cars were manufactured, and ATE is still making these calipers today. So we have some genuine OEM calipers. We have new pads to go all around the car, and the front rotors have already been replaced, but I got a set of rear rotors because those appear to be the originals. And then we have some Limforder upper control arms. These are the OEM manufacturers for Mercedes. If you actually call the Mercedes Classic Center, they will tell you that Limforder made their suspension. Now over here, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, we also have some tie rods, a center, this is the suspension, this is the steering damper shock, and it's made by Stabilis. That was the original manufacturer. And there's our drag link or our center link. So we're also going to place these steering components. Now we also got in our center caps. I've decided to keep these original bunt wheels, but I want to remove these original center caps because they have a little bit of scraping on them just from age. And we have some new genuine Mercedes center caps. So we're also going to replace those, but that'll be in a later video when we do the tires. All right, so here's the plan of attack today. We're going to inspect the wheel bearings to see if these need to be repacked or re-greased. The service records do say that was addressed 8,000 miles ago, so they're probably going to be good. But we want to remove these calipers. We're going to get these old 45, 46-year-old calipers off of here. And we're also going to do the tie rods, and then underneath the car we have our center link, the drag link, and the steering shock. And then we're going to get this upper control arm replaced because even though these bushings look beautiful up here, I can see the boot has started deteriorating. See the cracking around the boot right here? So we're going to go ahead and replace those. Okay, on the front brakes on the 116, you have a brake pad wear sensor. So first thing we want to do is remove that wear sensor, and it's just a 10 millimeter. All right, then this, we'll keep that little nut or bolt set aside so we don't lose it. And then these just pull out of here. You know, just grabbed a small set of pliers here. See if we can get these guys out of here. There's one. There we go. All right, on the 116 chassis, you have this little bracket right here, and this is where the brake hose runs through. It's like a retaining bracket. The hose now in this vehicle has already been replaced. That's a new hose, so we're going to keep that, but we need to undo this little retaining bracket so we can then remove the brake and move it out of the way. And that is also a 10 millimeter. Now that's going to remove the brake pad wear sensor to get that out of the way. And the bolt that actually removes this bracket to get the hose out of the way is behind our front rotor. So we need to remove the rotor in order to get access to that. Now to get the rotor off, we'll need to remove the caliper, but we also need to remove the dust cap to get our spindle nut off. Now I can see that is all brand new, fresh grease. That has already been repacked, so those bearings have already been addressed. All right, let's go ahead and get our spindle nut off of here. Now what this is a radio interference pin. There we go. It's just a little copper pin from, I guess back in the day, if you had interference on your AM radio or the AM channels, this little pin, that's what that is, copper interference pin, radio interference pin. All right, let me get some of this grease off of here, and we'll reapply the grease when we put it back together. All right, you have a 5mm nut here, or Allen nut, to get this spindle nut off. There we go. We're just going to loosen that. And then these are just hand tight in order to set the correct bearing preload. So we'll go ahead, spin that off. We'll just get it loose. Now let's go ahead and address the caliper before we try. You know, you can't take off the rotor unless the caliper's off. This is just loose and ready to come off. All right, I am back here behind the caliper, and we just have two 19mm bolts that we need to pull out of here. And once they're loose, you can usually get them off with your electric. And we're replacing all these bolts too with the brand new hardware. All right, now we want to go ahead and get our brake caliper off of here. And just set it aside. We'll balance it like right over here on the control arm. Like that right there. There we go. Now we want to go ahead and remove the rotor so we can access the little 10mm nut here that removes this mounting bracket so we can remove the brake hose and the caliper out of the way. Okay, there we go. Okay, looks like the inner bearing and seal stayed on the spindle. So I'm going to go ahead and order a new seal so we can put it back into the wheel hub. All right, here's that 10mm nut that I want to remove right here. And once we remove that, there we go. Now this bracket will come loose. There we go, and we can remove and put this out of the way. Now I'm going to just attach it with a little cable so it hangs from the cable and doesn't put stress on our brake hose. Attach it to our lower control arm here. There we go. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing. And we'll just twist that wire around here. And now this can just hang right here from this cable and it won't stress our brake hose. All right guys, despite all these bearings and seals being serviced, this bearing was stuck on the spindle and I had to pry it off there. So I'm going to go ahead and order a new set of bearings. I don't know why that one was so tight on there. And anyway, I got that nut out there and that was the goal. All right, here is the brake dust shield. I just want to go ahead and clean this up in the parts washer. But we're going to take it off and that'll make it easier for us to access the suspension and work behind here. And these are also just 5mm Allens that hold this on. There we go. All right, guys, this is what I wanted to get access to. There's our steering knuckle. And you can see some of the factory paint has come off here. I'll probably touch that up with the original satin black paint. You can see the shock is new. That's been replaced. But we want to get this nut off right here so we can remove our upper control arm. So let's go ahead and lower the car down and do that. Okay, I've got the car lowered back down, and guys, it's pretty cold out here, so I've got the shop heater on. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off so you guys can hear. All right, there we go. So what we want to do now is remove this upper control arm. Now we'll see, if you look here in the engine compartment, we can see right there, you see that nut? There's a bolt that runs through to the back side. That's what retains the upper control arm. And that bolt, there you go, sits in the car like that, and the bolt goes through this hole. So we're going to want to take that bolt out. But also, we want to detach the upper control arm from the sway bar. Now, to do that, here we go. So first we loosen this Allen bolt here. This is like, it's just a compression fitting, and that keeps this bolt right here from backing out. So we loosen that, we take this bolt off, and then we pop the ball joint out of the steering knuckle by taking this nut off, and that will remove the sway bar from the upper control arm and the knuckle. And then we can remove the bolt in there and pull this out. Now, also, I have a jack stand underneath here. That's just for safety, because once we disconnect this steering knuckle from the upper control arm, the shock is what's actually holding the spring in the car. And now if your shocks are good condition and everything is attached correctly, that's absolutely fine. The shock will retain, will pull that lower control arm up and keep the spring in the car. But for safety, in case something pops loose, you always want to put a jack stand under that lower control arm. All right, let me go ahead and get to it. That's always kind of a difficult area to record. So first we're gonna loosen, there we go. Just loosen this a little bit, and that removes the tension that's holding this bolt in. Then we can remove that bolt. All right, guys, that bolt is loose. I'll finish taking it out in a minute. What we want to do now is remove the 17mm nut and separate the spindle from the upper control arm. We've got that nut off of there. Next, we want to use a ball joint separator. That's what this looks like. And it's just going to slip around here like that. Just pop loose. Now that's loose, and we can raise the car up a little and separate the steering knuckle from the upper control arm. All right, see if I can press this up here. What I like to do is sometimes, see, I can't quite get it up high enough to remove it. So I'm gonna put a jack under the passenger side and raise that up, and that will cause our sway bar right here to lift up a little bit because it's connected to the other side, and that allowed me the room to get this out. Okay, there we go. Now, I can get that out of there. See how we're disconnected here? There we go. All right, there's the retaining bolt that was going into the sway bar. So this is now loose. And now let's go take the one out from inside. Okay, right there, there's the nut I want to take off. And it's a 19mm. Now, what we have to do is get a wrench around the back side. All right, there we go. Got that off. You got to get this bolt to press through and come out the back side. There we go. Got it. And we're absolutely going to reuse this. I mean, look at the condition of that. The plating is still on here from 1979. That is beautiful condition. All right, let's get this upper control arm out now. Okay, now this upper control arm should come right out of here. Bam, there we go. And yep, there we go. That's why we're replacing this. Check out that condition of that upper boot. See, it's got a big crack in it right there where all the grease can leak out. It was still hanging in there. Yeah, see, it's got a tear right there too. And let's go ahead and get our new one in there. All right, we've got our beautiful new control arm to put in here. And we just want to slide it up in here. Get it in place. Okay, next, before I start tightening all this down, I want to get the bolt through the upper control arm up there. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult to install that bolt. All right, I'm going to show you guys a trick. So from the factory, when these upper control arms were installed, nothing was in the engine compartment. And Mercedes ran the bolt from the back side, through to the front and then put the nut on. It is much easier when you're reinstalling it to turn the bolt around and go through the front side and then put the nut on the back side. There we go. Let's get it lined up here. There we go. There we go. Otherwise, if you try to go through that back side, it's going to be a nightmare trying to get it through there. And then we just put our nut on the back. I know you guys can't see that. Okay, we don't want to tighten it down yet. It's just in there loosely. Now, before I put our sway bar bolt back in there, I like to coat it with just a little anti-seize. There you go. That'll make it, next time it'll come out very smooth and keep any corrosion from appearing on there. All right, let's go ahead and install this. All right, here's where it can get a little tricky. Based on the position, see there's a hole right there that this bolt has to go through. And based on the position of the sway bar, you kind of got to get it lined up. So let's see, this one is going to go through here. And we're going to put our bushing right over there. And we're going to see if we can get this lined up or if we're going to have to raise the car up in the air a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do, we want to raise this sway bar to get the angle a little flat so that bolt will go in. And we need to do that by putting the jack stand on the other side of the car, lowering the car, and it'll lift this sway bar a little bit. All right, we need a little bit more. So you guys see what I'm doing. I'm trying to get a straight line so we can screw that bolt into the sway bar. So this will take me a second. All right, guys, after finagling with that for about 2 minutes, I got the bolt back in there. And you just want to tighten it down until you see your bushings start to compress a little bit. And then we want to tighten back up our lock nut here. Now also, this lock nut, you never want to fully remove it because it is very easy to cross thread if you fully remove it and then try to reinstall it. So you just want to loosen it, not ever remove it. There we go. That is now locked in place. Now we can go tighten down our bolt that goes through the inner part of the upper control arm, and then we can reinstall our spindle. Actually, we'll go ahead and get that lined up here. There we go. See if we can lower the car and get that to go in there. All right, there we go. That is in there now. Now let's go tighten the inner nut. All right, now we want to snug this back down. All right, there we go. Okay, so I just snugged this up. I didn't fully tighten it down because we do not want to tighten down the suspension until the car is under its own weight. That allows the bushings to flex to the correct, position, or like move to the correct position. Otherwise, if you tighten it down, when the car goes under its own weight, it'll twist the bushing. So we want to snug that up at the very end. Okay, I have lowered the weight of the front of the car down onto this jack stand and compressed the suspension. You see it pushed through our new control arm threads right there. And now that's under tension. These bushings up top are in the correct position to be tightened down. Now I can go through and tighten that up with my torque wrench. And we're also going to put our nut back on here and tighten these up. They go to about 35 foot-pounds on this nut right here. Come on, let me get that threaded. All right, so let me torque all this stuff down and then we'll be done with this side. All right, we've got our torque wrench right here. There we go. And hold the nut still on the back. There we go. That is now torqued to spec. Okay, next we want to snug this one up. All right, now I need to get the torque wrench, torque that one to spec. All right, there we go, guys. We have our beautiful brand new upper control arm. Everything is installed and torqued. Now, the next thing we want to do, I want to start removing the steering linkage. We have our tie rod, there's our steering shock. Here, I'll get under here for you. There we go. Our steering shock, our center link, and then our tie rod over there. I want to remove all of those and replace them. They appear to be originals, and I remember finding this tie rod is a little loose over here. So it's time to start doing that. So let me pop all those off. All right, before I can remove these tie rods, we have to get these castle nuts off. And if you see right there, there's a cotter pin that goes through there. So we need to get these cotter pins off of here. There we go. Come on. Oh, there we go. See, it just broke. So now I got to kind of cut it out of there. Oh, there we go. That one's coming. These have been in there for 40 years, so they're usually kind of hard to get out. There we go. It's coming. There we go. Got that one side out. And see if we can pull the other side out from the back. There we go. Now we can take the nut off. All right. Now we can get our ball joint separator and pop this out of here. And I'll stand back because this is going to go flying when it comes out. There we go. Okay, see how that tie rod is now loose? And there's another castle nut here, here. Then we got another one over here, here, and all the way over there. So let me go ahead, pop all those loose, and then I'll get all these steering components out of the car. All right, there's the passenger side tie rod I got out, and there's the driver's side. Now, before we take out the center link right here, we want to remove the steering shock damper, and that is a 17 millimeter right here. Now, you want to save this bolt. Let me get the brake out of the way. Here we go. Because we're going to reuse this bolt to reattach the new steering shock damper. But that just pulls out. And what I like to do is pull out that shock damper and then just put our bolt right back through there so we don't lose it. So we'll do that. All right, that is now disconnected from the frame, and we can go ahead and remove the center link or the drag link. All right, and you want to stand back when you do this because that's it's going to apply a lot of force, and this will go flying across the room. Oh, there we go. Cool. It didn't go flying across the room. So we got the drag link out on this side. Let's knock out the other side. Okay, this might come flying out and hit the ground when I undo this, so I'm going to stand back a little bit. Oh, there it went. All right, what you see here is your front steering linkage. There's our drag link we just pulled out, and you can see the steering shock, that's the stabilizer shock, connects to the drag link right here. So let's go ahead. We want to keep this bolt and that nut to transfer our new steering shock and drag link. Here we go, right over here. We're going to go ahead and assemble these and put these back in the car. Let's see. There we go. You can see identical parts here. All right. Whoop, turn that around that way. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and transfer this bolt over here and then reinstall this part. Just a 17 millimeter. Let's get our wrench on there. There we go. Go ahead and pull that off. Now we want to just install it right over onto our new shock and new center link, our drag link. And you don't want to crank this down crazy tight, you just want to bump it. There we go. There we go. That's where I want it, right there. Perfect. All right, so we'll throw this old one away. And let's go ahead and reinstall this on the car. Let's take our covers off. All right, here's a pretty good angle for you. And we're just gonna go ahead, put this side back into here, and we're just loosely going to put our nut up there just to hold it in place. Now we'll come around to this side over here. Hopefully you guys can see that. And we'll loosely put this one in place. Now our shock, remember the bolt that we saved? We're going to take that out. And we're going to pull our shock out until it goes right into there. All right, there we go. We'll loosely put that on here. All right. Now I can go ahead and tighten all these down. There we go. Okay, now when you're tightening this one here, your ball joint can actually start spinning. We're going to see. And if it does, okay, if it starts spinning, there's a little place for an Allen wrench to go in the top right here to hold it still as you tighten this down. Also, the new parts, they no longer use the old cotter pin. They're actually lock nuts. So you don't have to put cotter pins in these because they're lock nuts and they stay in place. Okay, so what you can do to hold that ball joint from spinning is you put an Allen right up here in the top, and there you go. It holds it from spinning so you can tighten it down. Now, once it starts getting tight, it won't spin anymore. We can go ahead and torque it down. There we go. That's good. All right, let's knock out the other side. And again, on this side, go ahead and put our Allen key up here in the top. All right, nice. Okay. Okay, from under the car, this is what we've accomplished. We have a new steering damper shock and a brand new center link or drag link. All right, let's go ahead and address the new tie rods now. The trick with our tie rods before we install the new ones is we want to put them as close as we can to the length of the old ones. That will allow us to drive it to the alignment shop. Because if you get them all out of whack, it'll be you won't be able to drive it because this is what controls your alignment. And we're going to go get new tires and drive to the alignment shop. But that is about, maybe I could go in a little bit on this side. All right, let's see. There we go. That is right on the money. So let's go ahead and install this in the car. We're gonna go in right there. Then we'll come around and put it in the hole right over here. Okay. We want to put our nut on the end. All right. We'll put the nut on this end over here. Okay. Good. So what we're going to do is tighten it down, and then we're going to lock it in place. You can lock it here with this 13 millimeter, and then there's, I think it's a 19 millimeter lock here. And again, if it starts to spin, we'll need to put our Allen key in the top. Here we go. Here we go. Now, to lock it in place where, this can turn to adjust your alignment, you can turn it clockwise or counterclockwise, and it will lengthen or shorten, but you don't want that to move once it's in place. So this takes a 13 millimeter. And we can lock this side in place. right, there we go. And then over here, we actually need to put a wrench on it. Okay, we went ahead and got this one locked down. And now the alignment shop will have to undo these to tweak and adjust the alignment when we go up there for the alignment new tires. But this just allows us to safely drive up to the shop. So we're going to snug this one up here. There we go. Then I want to straighten the tie rod back out. All right, beautiful. All right, now I need to do the same thing on this side. Attach the tie rod from the idler arm over to the steering knuckle, and we need to adjust it to match the one that came off the car. So let me knock that out real quick. Okay, we got the passenger side tie rod installed. Beautiful new boots on here. So we have just redone all of the front steering linkage. You can see from tie rod to center link, drag link, to steering shock, to outer tie rod over here. Now what I need to do is go ahead and finish doing the upper control arm on this side of the car. Now it's going to be the same process as you guys just saw over there. So I'm going to do that off camera. But also what I want to do, you can see our nice new steering linkage is all with the beautiful semi-gloss black. And I want to go ahead, clean up our suspension, lower control arm, our spring, our steering knuckle, and I want to refinish these in the original semi-gloss black. So I'm going to clean these up with acetone. Acetone works great, and then we're going to respray those. Now guys, acetone is a great solvent. It quickly removes any dirt and grime and grease. So we're going to hit all this with some acetone real quick and then respray it. Now Scott is going to pressure wash and clean the wheel wells once we get to the final detailing stage. But for now, I want to refinish this suspension. So all I'm doing, so we just have a rag soaked in acetone, and it's going to clean any kind of dirt or grime off of here before we repaint. Now I want to be careful. This still has the factory original markings on the springs, so I don't want to rub those off. I don't want to spray over those. And we'll get our lower control arm down here. It's really not that dirty, but the satin, reapplying the satin black paint will look beautiful. I'm just a stickler for my suspension parts looking really nice. All right, once I have it all wiped down, I covered up my factory markings on the springs, and I covered up our shock. We don't want to paint our shock. Okay, it's still wet in here, but I can peel off our tape. There we go. We didn't paint over our shock. And all this is how it was delivered from the factory. It was in a satin black paint, and we still have our markings on our springs here. There we go. Now we'll let that dry, and that's going to be beautiful factory original style paint on the suspension. All right, guys, what I'm doing now, I have removed the battery and the battery tray so I can inspect it. Often I need to refinish these battery trays, but this will look great. There's no rot or any holes in the metal. I'll show you guys that in a minute. And next I want to remove this air filter housing lid so I can inspect the little bushings and the mounting bracket underneath it. And I just need to disconnect it from the vacuum pump up here. There is a 19 millimeter nut that you need to turn. There we go. That goes to the vacuum pump. We're just disconnecting this yellow line here. And there's a band clamp around the front of the turbo. I disconnected that. And now we just want to take out this air filter. Sometimes these are pretty tough to get out of here. So this will take me a second. These man air filters, they fit so tight that sometimes I have to destroy the air filter to get it out. But we have another one we can install. All right, I got this filter out of here. That took me a minute. I kind of had to tear it over here because it was on there so tight. So we're just going to replace that. You may ask why I'm removing the air filter housing, because to get access to the upper control arm bolt on this side of the car, it's underneath here. So you need to remove all this, and that's a good opportunity to actually inspect everything underneath the air filter housing. So that's why I'm doing this. Okay, once you have that, there's a band clamp that goes around the turbo for this U-pipe. And then we need to remove the little 10mm nuts under here. All right, once you get those out, we'll just set these aside. We also have our breather tube disconnected here. And this should now lift up and come forward. There we go. And we'll get it off the front of the turbo. It's sliding off right now. There it is. Okay. Now I'm going to disconnect our sensor here so it's not around our tube. There we go. And then we can just lift this guy right out of here. Okay, I can already tell it's incredibly clean under here. The turbo doesn't have any play whatsoever. That's beautiful condition. The turbo hose here is good. And here's that mounting bracket I wanted to inspect. This is also beautiful condition. There's no cracks or breaks in it. But this is where you mount those little bushings that the air cleaner mounts to. And this one back here, I think we want to replace that one. I think this one, see, that one has a tear in it. But these are all actually brand new. These are beautiful condition. That one has a little tear. So we'll replace this one. And I might need to get under there with a wrench. And they put a nut on the bottom. So I'll take that off, replace that one. But now I can get access to the upper control arm bolt very easily, which is right here. All right, what I'm doing right now is we're going to remove this bushing here. This one is torn. There we go. Yeah, let me show you what these are. So these are bushings that absorb the vibration on your air filter housing lid. And they're designed to fail. They're designed to break. See how that one broke? Otherwise, if they weren't, you would crack the mounting bracket or the intake manifold. So Mercedes just designed these to, last a little while and break, and then you have to replace them. Just a common maintenance item on these cars. And you see it takes like all of 5 to 10 minutes to get access and remove it. Okay, in the meantime, we have our replacement air filter housing bushing. And let's set our wrench here. Go ahead and screw that back into here. And then we're going to put a little 10mm nut on the back just to hold them in there. You don't have to do that, but I like to do it. And by the way, it's a 10mm little lock nut. That ensures they don't come loose. Like I said, you don't have to do that, but I like to do it. It's just a little insurance. And the previous owner was doing the same thing because I see there's one here and there's one here. So they knew what they were doing. Okay, there we go. And these are fantastic. Those are new. Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and move to the upper control arm on this side. Let me knock that out. And then we will go to the brake system. Okay, let me go ahead and start refinishing the battery tray and the air filter housing lid. That way it can dry, so when I'm done here, I can reassemble that stuff. And while I'm working on that, we have the, here's the battery tray, and it is not rusted through. We just have a little surface rust in here and here. And the tray is solid though. So what I'm going to do, yeah, there we go. The tray is solid, the metal's good. So I'm going to sand this down, treat it, and refinish it. So this will be good for the next 40 years. And also here's the air filter housing lid. You see we have a few spots on here. So I'm going to sand this down also and refinish it. But the lid is solid. There's no rust through here. So I'll show you those in a minute once I've refinished those. And what you're seeing here, guys, this is common on these cars. That's just what old cars do. But these are excellent condition. For example, I'll show you a bad condition one. This is one that I did not refinish. You can see This one just rotted all the way through. This was out of a 300D, and you don't want to reuse those. But in this case, we don't have any rot. We just have some surfaced corrosion, so I can fix that up nicely. All right, before I start sanding these and refinish them, first I want to go ahead and clean them up in the parts washer. First thing, I just want to I have a little wire brush, and I'll knock off some of the surface rust, and then we're going to clean it real good, and then we're going to sand it. Okay, let's go ahead and wipe it down, dry it off, and then I want to get a little 180 to 250 some grit sandpaper, and we'll sand this down. For the battery tray, we're going to use 100 grit sandpaper, and for the lid, we'll use like around a 240 grit so it doesn't leave as scratches. There you go. That's what you want to do. See how we just sanded off some of that surface rust to get to the good metal? And that's what we're going to do. See, it just comes right off and you're left with good metal right underneath. And this is where I want to get down here in this corner. Yeah, there you go. See how that comes off nicely and you have really good fresh metal. So this is going to take me a while. I'm going to do this on this whole tray, and then we'll treat it and we'll respray it, and that'll be good for the next 40 years. Now I use a little less grit. This was a 100 for the battery tray, but here we use 240. And see how it just cleans off the little surface rust. So we'll go around and finish it on this also. Okay, I've been sanding for several minutes. We want to give it a final rinse down, and then we'll wipe it down with acetone to get it good and dry before we put a primer. Put a primer on here and then refinish it in the satin black. All right, guys, I've got them out here beside the shop. And this is Zero Rust. It's a red oxide primer that prevents rust. I've been using this stuff, God, for probably 10 years. I don't even know if they sell it anymore. I bought a big stock of it. But this stuff works great. A red oxide primer, Zero Rust. And I've got a light coat applied right now. I'll apply several coats, and then we'll come back and refinish it in the satin black, and I'll show you the finished product in a minute. All right, we have another coat. You want to apply it really slow, let it dry, and do multiple coats. And you can see there's the spots that I sanded down here, and we've got that coated too. So let me let this dry for an hour or so, then I'm gonna refinish it and I'll show you when I'm done. All right, here we go, the finished product. You can see how beautiful it looks now, finished in the original satin black, sanded and treated for any rust. Looks absolutely beautiful. That's how you do it, guys. Just get you a drill, high-speed drill and a sander, sand all that surface rust off of there, treat them and respray them, and they look fantastic. All right, so it's the next day, and our refinished suspension has had time to dry, and you can see how nice it looks under here. So, and our new upper control arm, of course. What I want to do now is start on the brakes. So let's dive in. All right, now I want to start on the front brake system. We're going to replace the calipers, put new calipers on there. But earlier in the inspection video, if you remember, I said these were new rotors. Here's how I know they're new rotors. See right here, it has this silver paint on here. Well, that silver paint is the factory coating that is applied by ATE. See, these are all have the silver paint on there. and it wears off as soon as you step on the brakes. It'll wear off right here, keeps the rotor from rusting like during shipping. But this paint right here takes a little while to actually wear off, and when they're new, you can see that paint is still on here, and there's no lip on the rotor. It is perfectly good. I think that was done maybe 8,000 miles ago is what the service records did say. But one thing I noticed is when I removed the bearing, this bearing was stuck on the spindle. When I pulled it off, it was the bearing was stuck on there. So I didn't like that. So I went ahead, I'm going to throw away that bearing, and I went ahead and purchased, let me put a rag down here, purchased, there's a new seal, there's the new outer bearing, and here is a new inner bearing. And I'm going to go ahead and replace the outer bearing also. And I can see the bearings were serviced. I don't know why that one got stuck on there, but we're going to just replace it. Now, there is plenty of grease down in there. I don't need to repack grease. This is fresh grease. So I'm just going to repack these bearings and put them in there and then reinstall the rear bearing seal. All right, so as far as repacking our bearing, I like to use Timken wheel bearing grease. This stuff is red. When Jamie did it up at the shop, he used the green colored stuff. And guys, that doesn't matter. It's just wheel bearing grease. Ours is red. The stuff inside there is green. It doesn't make a difference. It all does the exact same thing. So we're going to go ahead and just pack our bearing here. You want to put it in your hand and then pack it around until the grease squirts up inside the rollers there. And this takes a few minutes. We just want to pack a bunch of grease up into here. It's messy, but that's the way you do it. Okay, once you get your bearing all packed, I'm going to put a little grease around the race right here. And there's plenty of grease already down in there, so we're just going to set our bearing right there. And you can't put it in the wrong way. It only goes in one way. All right, next what we want to do here is the replacement bearing seal. And I want to put this seal right here. And then we're going to tap it down in there. All right, now I'm going to get my sophisticated bearing press. I'm sorry, my sophisticated bearing seal press. There we go. It's a wood block. We just want to set it right on that bearing. I'm sorry, not the bearing. We want to set it on the seal. First, we'll make sure it's not in there crooked. There we go. And we're just going to tap it down in there. All right, looks good. Perfect. All right. Now I'll just put a little grease around the lip of our seal here so it doesn't fold over when we put it in the car. Okay, we're going to flip over our rotor and after we pack our outer bearing. Same process here. Let's put a little grease right here on the race. And the races are beautiful condition. I think those have already been changed. So we'll just grease it up here. All right, I'm going to drop our bearing down in there. There we go. All right, new bearings and seals, and new bearings and bearing seal. And let's go ahead and get this back on the vehicle. Okay, now before we put the rotor and hub on here, I want to put our brake dust shield, which I've got over in the parts washer. I've just cleaned it up, and I want to put it back on here. It has the 3 5mm Allen bolts. All right, I've just had these soaking in here because it has a bunch of nasty old brake dust on them. So we're just going to clean these off real quick before putting it back on the car. Wipe this down a little bit. Got all that brake dust off of there. Just Still has the Mercedes logo, and it looks like the factory stamping. It says 23. I don't know what that means. All right, I'm just gonna put one little bolt through here to hold it in place. But you want to use blue Loctite. The very small screws, and Mercedes used blue Loctite. You want to put that on each of them. It doesn't take very much, just a little bit. And when you tighten them down, you don't want to really crank them down because they're very small, you'll break them. I think that's why Mercedes used blue Loctite. You don't want to crank these down. Just snug them up right to where they get tight. That's it. All right, now remember we need to reattach our mounting bracket for the brake hose and the brake pad wear sensor that goes right through here. All right, so this little mounting bracket, let's see, get this out of the way. This little mounting bracket right here, you know, it attaches to the back of our brake dust shield or our splash shield. But before we can put it on there, we need to remove our hose and attach our new caliper. And this is a 14 millimeter. Let's see. There we go. That's loose. And I've got the new caliper right behind me. So I just want to screw this one off, and then I'm going to put my thumb over it so we don't leak all our fluid out. We are going to flush all the fluid through and change the fluid. I just don't want to make a mess while I'm doing this. All right, there we go. All right, just going to stick our hose in here. Try to get it started. There we go. Spin that around there. There we go. We only dripped out a little bit of fluid. All right, now we can attach our mounting bracket and put, see, this mounting bracket has to go, let's see, goes right behind here, but you can't put that on until you put the hose onto the caliper. So now let's go ahead and reattach that. All right, and I put a little blue Loctite on that bolt too, so it doesn't come out. All right, good. So we have that, the hose now attached through the mounting bracket, and now we can put our rotor back on. Okay, beautiful. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and put the rotor on here. I'm sorry, put the caliper on here so to hold it in place, and then we'll put our spindle nut on the end of the spindle here and tighten all that back down. There we go. They give us new bolts, and they already have blue Loctite on the bolts from the factory. They apply it for us. You can see it right there. So I'm just going to put one back here to hold it in place. There we go. That's held in place now. All right, we'll come back to putting pads and all that in. Now let's go back and put the spindle nut on. Now you see we got our bearing there, which is greased, but I want to wipe the grease off my threads here. There we go. That'll allow our spindle nut to go on there much easier. Okay, there we go. And here's our spindle nut. Now your spindle nut, it's flat on this side and not flat on this side. You want the flat side going up against the bearing. The bearing preload, you do not want to torque down crazy tight or your bearings will be too tight. You just want to do it hand tight, and really you just want to get the play out. And I'll show you how to do that. All right, now let me go ahead. I'm going to tighten the two bolts on the back of the caliper and tighten this brake hose. I'll be right back. All right, guys, we have this tightened down. Now, what we want to do, you hear the play? That's because this is wiggling back and forth. You want to tighten this down until you get the play out of there. Now, what I like to do, put a wrench on it like this, tighten it down and push the bearings into place. like that. See, that's too tight, but the bearings were just pushed into there and seated. Now I like to back it off. All right. All right, you hear that play? There we go. That's right where you want it. Hand tight. All right, I've wiped everything down, cleaned off any of my greasy fingerprints. We have tightened the spindle nut. Beautiful. Repacked bearings, new seal. All right. Now, the next thing we need to do is install the little radio interference pin. I noticed the one that actually came off the car, the little pin that goes in there was broken off. So I pulled the pin, it was still stuck in the end, and I just got a fresh one. And we're just gonna stick it in here, and you can kind of insert it with your Allen. There we go. Goes in right like that. Beautiful. All right, now let's put our grease cap on. Now, normally you would pack some grease down in the grease cap. That was already done when it was last serviced. We have lots of fresh grease down in here. So we're just gonna put that cap right over there. And then we're gonna just tap it on there. All right, beautiful. All right, next thing we need to do is get our new brake pads in and hook up our brake pad wear sensors. All right, we have some brand new Alte brake pads with Alte rotors and Alte calipers, Alte hoses. It's all the same manufacturer. That's who Mercedes used back in the day. Alte or Bendix. We're just going to slip these right in here. And these are very easy to install. Alte actually gives us this is a retaining bracket. And then there's two pins. The pins actually go through at the top and the bottom. And they have a little like lead crush washer right there. When you tap them in, that crushes and holds them in place. Let's see if I can do this for you on camera. So, stick that pin right through there. And it's got to come out the other side there. There we go. And then we'll press it in down here and stick the one on the bottom. Come on. There we go. Push that through the other side. Now we just need to tap those in with a punch. So there's our little pin right there, and you just put a punch on it. And you just tap it right through. There's our other one right up there. There we go. That holds the pads in there. Now we need to get our brake pad wear sensors connected. Okay. So if you look right there, there's a little hole in the brake pad. And that's where this brake pad wear sensor actually plugs in to that little hole. There we go, just like that. And then this actually comes around and plugs into the harness. And we're going to reattach the harness right here with our 10 millimeter. Let me get the other one that plugs in right here, and then we'll reattach that. All right, guys, there we go. Everything is reinstalled. And there we have it. And guys, just because I'm a little OCD, I went ahead and refinished our hub in the our satin black. But we have our new caliper, new wheel bearings and seals, refinished the suspension, installed the brand new upper control arm, installed all the steering linkage across the car. Doesn't that look beautiful? Cleaned everything up under here. This is going to be great for many, many years to come. Let me show you the other side. And the same on the passenger side. Refinished all the suspension over here. Did the upper control arm. And refinished the hub. Repacked and put in new wheel bearings and seal. New brake caliper with brake pad wear sensors, new pads, and you can see all the new steering linkage. Very, very nice. Oh, and let me show you the upper control arm on this side, just to show you why I was replacing it. Look at the boot on this one. it had just completely come apart. You can see the ball joint down in there. That would have failed in short order. Yeah, there it is. Anyway, so the parts table has a few parts off of it. I need to do the rear brakes. We'll probably save that for the next video. We'll do the rear brakes in the next video, the transmission cooler lines. But let's go ahead and reinstall the air filter housing and the battery tray and get the battery back in the car. All right, before we reinstall the battery tray and the filter housing, I went ahead and cleaned up underneath all of that on the inner fender or inner wheel well. You can see I also did it over here on this side. We have beautiful original blue paint under there. But I'm gonna go ahead, put the battery tray back in first. And guys, doesn't that look nice? Remember what it looked like before? It was all crusty and had corrosion on it. That is all cleaned up nicely. And this is just gonna mount right back down here. Now we have a little clip that is on, oh, there it is, on the battery terminal. This little clip, or the battery cable, goes around the back side of the battery tray. There we go. And that basically holds that cable in place. All right, I've got the bolts put back in here. All right, now we need to put our air filter housing back in, and I'm going to undo our sensor right there. I want that sensor to run up through. Yeah, there we go. I think that's where it's going to fit the best. Then we got to go around the front of the turbo. There we go. There we go. Now that sensor comes through here, and just that's a nice place for it to route. Plug that back in, slide this on. All right, beautiful. All right, let's tighten down the 10mm nuts, and right there is the band clamp for the front of the turbo, and then we're going to put our new filter and lid back on. Now you don't want to go too tight with these, because if you over tighten them, you'll break your little rubber mounts. You just want to snug them up. All right, let me tighten the clamp on the front. Okay, I think that's good. Put our breather tube back up here. And we need to attach this tube back to our vacuum pump. It just goes right onto the vacuum pump. And then right here, we have our accordion tube. It's the cold air intake. Basically, cold air comes in through here, and it comes up and blows into your intake. We just pull that down, and it fits right over there like that. Let me get us a fresh air filter. And your air filter just goes right there. Perfect. Now for the final touch. You guys remember what this lid looked like before. Now it is beautiful. Check that out. Now we'll have our clips come back from zinc plating. We don't have those back yet, but man, this is just going to be beautiful when I get all that done. There we go. That is beautiful with our new battery tray, or I'm sorry, refinished battery tray there. Beautiful. Just wait till I get the zinc plating back, guys. It's going to be outstanding. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. We did a lot in the video. New brakes, new suspension parts, new steering linkage, refinished the battery tray, the air cleaner housing, put some new rubber bushings underneath there, refinished the suspension in the satin black. We did a lot of stuff. So hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. There'll be several more videos on this car, and we'll see you next time. Take care.